on the couch, we've got Dean McKillop and Bill Boner.
He waved when you were pointing at me.
Sorry, Will.
I was doing this one. It'll come back for me.
I got there in
Bill
the
Boner
end.
extraordinaire.
Now, when Will booked in for this podcast, he did book in as Bill Boner. Explain yourself.
Just when travelling around America with Jamie, the entire 6 weeks was just jokes.
Okay.
There was just not a moment of that 6 weeks that wasn't shit talk. And I believe Bill Boner was actually a guy who donated millions of dollars to the Alabama Football Club.
Okay.
And we were just like, Bill Boner.
I like
it. There are a few other names along the road as well, but yeah.
Because Bill is a nickname for William, which is your name. So I thought maybe, I don't know.
Well, that's why.
You just had a permanent erection the whole time you were in America and you went, I don't know.
Bill Boner's actually a real person, but I took his name because I like it.
Okay.
That's fair enough. Now, for the people that aren't watching and instead are just listening, we said Will, but Will who? Who are you? What do you do and why do you do it?
Will Crozier, and I am both a powerlifter, an athlete who currently, as of a few weeks ago, have the top 125 all-time Australian total. I had the all-time 110, but some guy in Victoria, I believe, took it. Bastard.
What an asshole.
Who is he?
I'll get back at him. Mitch Lee, if you're listening.
Burn in hell, Mitch Lee.
We might send it to him directly now. Just for the sake of it.
I'll get it back. Trust me. I need to hire yourself again to get me back there. And as coach, I coach and co-own Nexus Performance, and we coach mainly powerlifters, but a whole bunch of strength people online, as similar to yourselves, to get strong and compete powerlifting and do well.
Love it. And how did you get into powerlifting?
I did bodybuilding for a couple of years.
Yes.
My coach was very heavy in the way that he programmed, as in like he liked to give threes, he liked to give fives, and that's what I liked.
Yeah, just for listeners that don't know what that means a set with only 3 or 5 repetitions.
Yeah, heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And also heavily favoured squats, bench and deadlift in this program as well.
Okay.
And then I kind of realised that I was good at that, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. This is the part of the program I like. This other stuff isn't that fun.
Yeah.
And then the dieting obviously isn't that fun.
No, you're right.
I think it's awesome. I love dieting.
Sarcasm, maybe?
Yeah. I think as you get better at it, you appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think it's more an appreciation. But it obviously wasn't fun, and the way I did it wasn't the way I would do it now. And then after it, I just realised that I was good at the lifting, and then decided, hey, I'm just going to keep eating food, and then I did my first comp in March 2015, Queensland States, and in that first comp broke a deadlift record for my weight class in Australia.
That is cool.
I'm pretty
and
good.
What's your weight class?
This is cool. I did that at 100. Then for the past, most of the years, so 3-4 years, I've done 110, and I did my first comp in the week a couple weekends ago at 125. Well,
at 117.
Class.
Yeah, that's
Well,
awesome.
you're 117.
Yeah, in shoes and clothes and food.
Yeah, right.
Isn't it funny though that you're bigger now as a powerlifter than you were as a bodybuilder, where the goal is to be as big and ripped as possible?
Yeah. Well, different
evolution of
different
training.
worlds, but I think it's a different mindset as well.
Yeah.
Because even at 100 and 110, when I did those weight classes, it was about I kind of wanted to look good and stuff like that. But then I don't know, there was a point where I got so lean in the weight class and it was affecting my lifts and stuff like that to some degree, and I was like, you know what, like I started powerlifting. Well, I started lifting really to get as big and as strong as I could. So
I think you've succeeded.
Maybe I should just do that. And so hence I was just like, no, screw it, 125's the future, because I try and teach all my clients to realize that if you're in a weight class, like holding yourself back for a weight class or to win a weight class or to get a record might seem like a really cool thing at the time, but you are the one that you're going to be most competitive in is the one that you're going to be biggest in.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I think that's actually one of the things that I learned from you over the years of doing some work together and it was quite interesting, is that you look at body stature as an indicator for potential class
Performance.
management, I suppose you could say. So like if you're 180 centimeters tall and you're currently in the under 90s, chances are you probably shouldn't dive for that. You should just work your way up to the height division that is more suitable to your weight, because if we look at everybody else that's performing in those weights, they all seem to be a similar height.
If you look at the people who are winning on a worldwide, like in all the feds, both tested and non-tested, that they are the biggest guys in the weight classes are most of the time winning. There are obviously going to be outliers. They're going to be people that are just genetic freaks. But
I wish I was one of them.
A genetic
Can I
freak?
just say, oh my god, I would die to be a genetic freak.
Outside of those couple outliers, like it's the biggest dudes winning. The ones with the most muscle mass tend to win.
So it's kind of about knowing your place. What did you you said before, if you had your time again, you wouldn't do it the same way, going from bodybuilding to powerlifting, I think.
We wouldn't do bodybuilding again.
Right, okay.
In the same way.
Yeah.
As in the way that I prepped was certainly not optimal, but...
Was it chicken and broccoli? Is that...
Yeah, but... Right. No, it wasn't. It was just done in a... The process was done badly.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not to really a discredit to the coach or the time, because we've come so far. Like I think with you guys being bodybuilding a lot more than me, you know that bodybuilding's, the methods have come a long way.
We have evolved hugely in the
Massively.
last 5-10 years even.
Hell, I mean, I've even involved
It's
personally in the last 2 years.
Even year to year, like obviously kind of wearing slightly different realms, but I look at my programs that I was writing a year ago or 2 years ago, I'm like, God damn, dude. What were you thinking?
Yeah.
But then every year I do that.
Yeah.
Well, I hope so, because that's called continuous learning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the whole reason why I'm doing all these courses and stuff, is hopefully it continues to evolve, and I can keep ahead of where I was. But yeah, it's just always fascinating to me at the end of every year. Like I realise how much though.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's difficult to look back and go, fuck, I didn't know that then. If only I did X, Y, and Z. But all we can do is the best that we can do now. And then as you know more, then do the best that you can do then. And that keeps happening. Yeah,
and definitely. And there was a point where I used to almost be judgy of people when I saw people doing dumb stuff online. Whereas now, my mindset's changing on more of a maybe the person just doesn't know.
Yep.
And obviously there are people who just don't even try to know.
Yes.
Which
and that's
are the bad ones. But yeah, I find these days more if I'm actually asking why and approach it differently to those people, then I realised that they were just me a few years ago.
Well, that's the thing, there's always a progression of knowledge. So sometimes people that are doing hopefully not bad things, but maybe not optimal things, it's just because they don't know any better sometimes. Yeah. You mentioned before you were in America, and obviously that was, people I think thought you were going over there for a competition, but really you went over there for education and development with Jamie from Melbourne Strength Culture, which was really cool. Yeah. I think you coming from a bodybuilding world into the powerlifting world is a really interesting position, because there's a lot of people that probably attempt it but don't do it very well. Yeah. Do you see that with bodybuilders that want to become power athletes?
Yeah. The bodybuilders are actually in a great position when it comes to powerlifting, because like I said, the biggest guys tend to win weight classes. Like you need, if you look at the things that kind of determine strength, there are a few things that we can't control. Muscle insertions, segment lengths, bone lengths, short femurs, long femurs, whatever, socket depths, things like that. We can't control that. We can't do anything about it, even if we know that it's suboptimal or whatever. But the things that we can control, the main one that we can control is muscle size. You can always get bigger, or you can always get leaner. You can always do that.
How much of a pussy you are?
So, yeah, maybe we can control that a bit. But yeah, the main one we control is muscle size. We can control, there's other ones like neuromuscular timing or efficiency or whatever you want to call it. But at a certain point, if you've been doing powerlifting for 6-7 years, like me,
that innovation is nailed.
I only need a small peaking block to peak that skill, and the rest of it's still going to be hypertrophy, and hypertrophy is a lot slower. You can't really get faster at it. So yeah, I think bodybuilders are at a great place to start, as in like they've got a huge base, they've got a massive advantage over the powerlifters that don't have that background, I feel.
Yeah. What would their disadvantages be, do you think?
The disadvantages are the way that they go about that transition. They've got all this muscle that was built maybe doing isolation stuff or whatever. They could have done whatever.
Bicep curls and a back day.
Let's not typecast the poor bodybuilder. No, but usually they're going to be doing like muscle specific training.
Well, like even to throw it back, like when you program for a bodybuilder, when I program for a person with physique goals, I'm thinking, when I'm throwing their program together, I'm thinking what exercises are going to get them the most bang, as in like muscle stimulation, to like fatigue or like side effects. You know, like the side effects of fatigue, tendon, joint, ligament bashing, like all this stuff that kind of like the stuff that you don't want, but it kind of comes with training. But like we want to pick stuff that are going to get the most stimulus to.
Less fatigue, more stimulus.
Stimulus to fatigue ratio.
Oh, Mike is retarded.
Yeah.
Coining terms like a genius.
Yeah, he is.
But yeah, you want to get that stuff without getting beat up, and so if I'm picking exercises for a bodybuilder, I'm going to pick ones that maximise that. Whereas in powerlifting, we don't have that choice. We have 3 lifts we have to do in competition, and the key to them, surprisingly enough, is to kind of cut out as much as we can. Yeah. We want to almost cheat as much as we can. We want to become efficient again and use the least muscle as possible. Yeah. Well, to a degree. Yeah. But so yeah, very different worlds. And so I think when bodybuilders come into powerlifting, they're used to that. They're used to trying to just put maximum tension on their quads to build their quads, which is great for something like a leg extension or a leg press or something like that. But when it comes to a squat, it's no longer about how much you use your quads or how much you use your hamstrings or how much you use your adductors.
It's about how much weight you can lift.
It's about the weight on the bar and doing them to a competition standard, and that's literally it.
God, it's difficult though because as a bodybuilder, you think like, okay, you're doing bicep curls, you're thinking about your biceps, you're thinking about it squeezing, and you kind of train yourself to be in that thought pattern when you lift, and then when you move to powerlifting, how do you all of a sudden just like switch that off? You're not like thinking about, okay, squeeze the glutes and extend through here.
I don't think it's about switching it off because I still program a lot of hypertrophy for my guys. Okay. Depending on the phase, but even also during comp phases, they'll have a little bit for more retention, but still. And during those exercises, I expect them to think like that. Yeah. So if I program my powerlifters leg extensions or arms or whatever, flies, they're still going to be focusing on taking it through a full range of motion, focus on getting the pump or whatever, like feeling the muscle working, like stimulating that muscle. It's just that when I go to a squat, bench and deadlift, that I have to shift that mindset and say, hey, like, this is exactly what I want from you. It's a different intent. It's a different goal behind it. I don't need your ass on the floor of a squat. Yeah.
It just needs to be illegal depth.
Well, that's great for quads. That's great for glutes. That's great for off season. But in a competition, like if I could work out a way to get you smidgen under depth so that you get whites, and that's it, like awesome. Yeah. That's exactly what I want.
Maybe we can think of this as a difference between internal and external cues, with internal cues being to think about the muscle and to like that mind-muscle contraction, whereas the external cue is to move the fucking weight. Get that deadlift bar off the ground, like get it up. Whereas if we were a bodybuilder doing a deadlift, instead we would be thinking about what our muscles are doing, the internal cues.
Yeah, I think it's a shift of like conscious connectivity. Like bodybuilder would be consciously connecting mind to muscle contraction. Yeah. Powerlifter would be consciously connecting movement pattern efficiency. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you could even look at it as joints. Like I want to put my joints in the right positions for things to work. Yeah. Like I want to put ribs and hips on top of each other so that I can get the maximal bracing, so I can get injured on the crutch, so I can keep them there during a squat. I want to put my ankles and my knees and everything stacked so that the force production is right, all that good stuff. So, and it has to be just competition standard no more.
Yeah, I think that would be a tough mindset for a bodybuilder to shift out of.
It's hard
if they're hyper aware of range of motion and trying to be perfect. to try and get them into a position where they're literally just trying to shift their focus on maximizing the efficiency of the movement, as opposed to almost sometimes bodybuilders, although argumentatively, potentially incorrectly, like focus way too much on trying to make it difficult, making a weight difficult to move, with the assumption that it makes muscles grow more, which I think is a false assumption. But
like we could give the example of maybe a Turkish get-up, like fucking so difficult, but hypertrophy to effort doesn't quite stack up. Like muscles aren't growing because you're doing not saying that that's a bad exercise in and of itself, but if the goal is
for hypertrophy,
for hypertrophy,
for nearly everything.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Shoulder stability. I mean, there's better things. Stability? Yeah, well, there's but that's a good example of something being difficult, but not really getting the outcome that you want.
Yeah,
just because it's difficult, you know.
Yeah,
you have to get good at the 3 lifts. Yeah. You have to get good at squatting. You have to get good at benching. You have to get good at deadlifting.
For our listeners who don't understand, who are bodybuilders or just gen poppers who don't quite understand powerlifting, can you explain legal depth and what you meant by whites?
Yeah. So we have to perform a 1 RM on squat, bench, deadlift.
What's a 1 RM, Will?
1 rep maximal weight,
as
much as you can do over 3 attempts. And there are rules for each of them. So on a squat, you have to get, like, I forget the exact wording and the refs blast me for it, but basically get your hip crease under the top of your knee. Doesn't matter how much under, you don't get extra points for going lower. Just has to be there enough. A deadlift, you have to start with the bar on the ground. You have to lock it out with your knees locked and your hips locked. And on a bench press, we have to unrack it with joints locked, elbows locked, control it to the chest. When the bar's motionless, they'll tell you to press it. You press it back up to the top until you're back at that starting position, or locked out, and then they'll tell you to rack it.
Perfect.
So all 3 have to be to a certain standard to keep it somewhat fair.
And can you explain those white lights?
Yeah, there's 3 judges. They give you a white if they think it's good. They give you a red if they think it's bad. Majority wins.
Yeah, and you need at least 2 whites.
Yeah, so you need 2 out of 3 to pass or fail you.
Yeah.
And then 3 attempts per lift.
Yeah, same as pretty much any like Olympic sport, throwing sport, whatever. But yeah, you get 3 attempts to do your best. So usually the first ones you want it to be super easy to build confidence or to build momentum or whatever you want to call it, to get something on the board in case something goes wrong.
Yeah.
So it's usually like a warm up, and then the second one will be tough. It'll be something that you are 99% sure that you can do, but it's probably like it's going to be hard. To think like, I don't know, 95-97% of your 1 RM. And then the third will be a go for it, kind of. Yeah, 100%, like a proper hard lift.
Legitimate
like blood vessels popping in your eyes. Kind of.
Sometimes.
I know, I've seen you with bloodshot eyes before. So with your training now that you've just peaked and done a comp and wiped the floor, might I say, what's your training looking like now?
That was 2 weeks ago. And to give a little bit of context, we travelled around, like you said, we travelled around America for 5-6 weeks, doing courses, doing holiday stuff, and very suboptimal circumstances for peaking for a competition, because the competition was right at the end of the trip. Very limited recovery, so we had to adjust training to suit that recovery, which meant pretty much dialing things back to nothing. So I would usually train 4 days a week. I would do my main lifts, and then I would do accessories to keep healthy. For this trip, we did 3 days a week. I did bare minimum, so just the main lifts, really, 3-4 sets, and a couple of things a week to keep my shoulders a little bit happy. So literally just enough to peak. Just enough to maintain skill in the main lifts. And then I did the comp, went really well, surprisingly. And then, so coming back here, my kind of work capacity is absolute trash. Really. Like and when you want to scale, when you want to get better, you're going to do, more volume, more intensity, whatever it is, you get progressive overload. you don't want to do that in big jumps. Because that's...
way more fatigue than stimulus.
Well, just things aren't used to it.
Yeah.
I guess you should say. And if you can stimulate a muscle doing less, why not?
Yeah,
because
so that comes down to
right?
again, Mike Israel's minimum effective volume. If you only need 5 or 10 sets to make an improvement, why do 30?
Yeah,
exactly.
There'll be time for 30 down the track,
and it's only it's only going to beat you up more.
Yeah,
to do more. So coming back here, I'm doing very little volume. Probably a program in which most people would laugh at and say that is haha, like that is so weak of you, which it honestly feels like it, to be fair. When I look at it, I'm thinking that to myself, but then when I go do it, I'm like, holy shit. We've identified a few muscle groups that want to be brought up, and we're just doing enough volume to hit that, which for yesterday's workout was 8 sets.
8 sets.
8 sets of legs, so 3 squats, 2 split squats, and 3 sets of leg extensions.
Yeah, nice. Were you sore after that?
I am. I'm scared. A little bit scared for tomorrow.
Oh,
my quads are a little bit, and then the bottom like glutes. So the right ones at least.
Yeah.
And if I pulled up today, and my back was sore, I'd be like, shit. What have we done? But at least the indicators are good.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Oh, that's good. So when do you plan on increasing volume?
The way I program, so usually it depends on a person's level, but I would either do it week to week, very incrementally, like add a few sets a week over a mesocycle. And that's typically how I would do something for like a bodybuilder, but I would expect them to have a bit more background than what I have.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That I can help with the comp and that. So I'll probably just run this for 3-4 weeks, whatever, until I feel like the benefit isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And then we'll design a whole new mesocycle with maybe 10% more.
Yeah.
And you'll probably be like 12 weeks out by then for pro roll.
I think I got 2. I think the way when I planned it, it was like 2.5 months of hypertrophy. Yeah. Because I think I'm 18 weeks out or something like that.
Yeah.
And since I'm in a weight class where I have a lot of room to move, I'm giving more time to hypertrophy, and then I'll just probably peak for the last maybe 8 weeks.
Yeah. How do you find hypertrophy? Do you find it interesting or difficult?
It's hard because when I go through these hypertrophy cycles, I miss the heavy stuff, and then when I go through the heavy stuff, I'm like, fuck, I just want to do some reps.
Yeah, you're so exhausted.
So it's kind of like a what you don't have you want.
Yeah.
But I like it because I just like to think about it. I like to think about the stuff that we're talking about.
Get some connections.
Yeah, and I like to have a little bit of DOMs and stuff like that. Or even though it is really cool to put 300 kilos in the bar, week to week that gets old.
Fucking tiring, hey?
Tiring and just beat up. Like things hurt, shoulders hurt, hips hurt, knees hurt, everything hurts. It's
kind of sadistic, but I like the DOMs as well.
Yeah, I do to a degree. Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever been so sore in your glutes that you can't sit down without grimacing?
Not in a long time. Not since the bodybuilding days.
Oh man!
But like I said, my bodybuilding days were, we went to failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes this one slaps me on the butt, as most boyfriends do, and it feels like domestic violence when it's my glutes are that sore from training, and he gives me a gentle slap. I'm like, ah!
The other thing is like when you get peeled for competition, just sitting down hurts because you're just sitting on bone. Yeah. It's like bone and muscle. You don't realise how much cushion a bit of fat on the ass gives.
Don't miss that.
Yeah, no.
And being cold.
But I think again you highlighted another good point: bodybuilding transition into powerlifting, which I know you have some clients that do that. The mindset around trying to irk every last rep out of an exercise, as opposed to being happy with achieving the goal of that particular set in that particular mesocycle.
Well, going back to what I did yesterday, those 8 sets, the squats were probably 3-4 reps from failure, easy. Like the 8th one was nothing.
Yeah.
The split squats were the same, maybe 2-3 from failure.
God, they hurt for the amount of weight you can do for split squats.
Yeah, and the split squats at the moment, I'm just doing like arm supported as well. Yeah. So there's a lot
arm
of weight.
supported, okay.
It's hypertrophy. Again, hypertrophy is intent. If I was going through a different phase, it'd be different. But and then the leg extensions were 1-2 reps from failure. So they're not even at failure.
Yeah.
you know,
but your 1-2 from failure is still probably, at least from an advanced lifter's point of view, far more closer to a legitimate 1-2 than somebody else who's like, I was 1-2 from failure. And like, you know, with Gen Pop clients or people that really aren't that advanced in training, they're really like 5-6. You know?
I know this is so painful, but just so we're not assuming any knowledge, can we break down what we mean by being 3 off failure? Do you guys want to explain that?
Well, my explanation would be that you are 3 reps from mechanical failure specifically, which means if you're doing a particular exercise in a particular way, so we stick with leg extensions. So if you're doing it at a roughly same amount of speed for each rep, roughly, you don't change your repetition speed, you don't change your repetition length, and you're about 3 reps before your legs can no longer extend up and do another rep.
When you attempt a repetition, you would fail it. Not because it hurts, but because you physically fail. So what Will's saying is he was not training until he physically couldn't do it anymore, but rather he chose a weight that got him about 3 repetitions off failure.
I felt like I could have done about 3 more.
Roughly. And normally what we see is that the lower the rep range, the better you are at. It sounded like I said better. I didn't say better.
I think he did.
I said the better you are, and it came together, just so everybody knows.
He does say use, so I wouldn't put it past you.
The better you are the closer you are to like the lower reps, the better you are at guessing your reps from failure. So like, you know, if you want to do a 4 RM, you're going to get pretty close. If you want to do a 25 RM, you're probably going to fuck that one up for a while.
Well, if it was 25, I would just take out the failure.
What's the point?
Well, this the other, I think it actually was like an interesting segue, although it's not necessarily, like, you're mainly obviously here talking about powerlifting, is that bodybuilders fuck up that notion that they need to go to failure anyway. That whole notion of needing to go to failure, for the most part, is unnecessary.
That's what I meant before, is like when people transition to powerlifting, is that we're doing technical lifts to some degree. I mean, it's not a snatch, but it's a squat, bench, deadlift. There's a lot involved. There's a lot, when you first get into them, there's a lot involved. There's a lot to think about. And then I always get bodybuilders that come across that have been doing bodybuilding too long, and they're used to taking their bench press to failure. And then I'm like, dude, film me a set. And then they say they're doing a set of 10. Like after the 5th one, all techniques out the window. And I'm like, dude, 5th was your failure. As far as I'm concerned, because those last 5 were just garbage and just smashing your joints, smashing your tendons. Like, you're not getting anything out of them from a skill or from a neuro or even from a hypertrophy perspective.
If the goal was to increase the risk of injury, they're doing a great job.
Fantastic.
Or if the goal is just an arbitrary rep number for the sake of achieving a rep number.
So I'll just so that's where I'll chuck in other things like tempos, slow tempos, just to make them make that a lot harder, make it harder to fuck up, I guess. But so there are ways to get around it, but that's a whole nother thing probably.
Now, Will, I'm really itching to get to your would you rather, so I can get there sooner rather than later. Do you have any wrap up points for those listening?
On the topic of transitioning from bodybuilding to powerlifting,
It could be about anything: nipple tassels, lactation.
No, I don't.
Or on the topic specifically. Whatever.
Lactation outside of your scope. Let's just stick with that. If lactation is involved, it's just say it's outside of my scope.
Can't help. But
don't squeeze
on
too
that.
Oh, fuck's sake.
On that topic, bodybuilders that are transitioning across understand the goal behind what you're doing, the intent. So if it's squat, bench, deadlift, there's skill involved. So we don't want to push super close to failure. Stick to your hypertrophy exercises for hypertrophy when you need to. So understand why something's programmed. Don't get caught up in going to failure every time. You'd be surprised how much you can get out of 2-3 reps from failure. Bodybuilders can probably learn from that too, like you said.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the third one, which probably needs a lot more context to it, but is that volume isn't everything. Like I said, when we write a program, I'll keep the volume the same for a whole mesocycle, and then I'll increase intensity, which technically, it's more volume. And because intensity is the driver for my sport, right? So it's not everything. We don't need to do maximum volume. We don't need to crawl out of the gym, with our legs on fire. We don't need to, more isn't always better. Because more isn't really more. what you think's more is probably not more. It's just like I said,
or it's more fatigue.
Minimum effective volume.
Yeah, or what's the middle one?
Or maximum recoverable volume.
Yeah.
That's MRV. And then optimal. What's the next one? I can never remember that.
I don't know, but it's but for powerlifting, it's much for strength. It's much less important than you probably think. It's most people don't have the skill and all that. So get as big as you can, get as jacked as you can, build the skill, and you'll probably do well. But you don't need max volume to do that.
Even though that all sounds really simple, it's a lot for people to think about if they hadn't considered all those things before. No. So maybe the best thing to do is get a coach that knows what they're talking about.
Yes.
I know a great one.
Yes, I know one's in every city.
Yes.
So, I mean, people could ask, but unfortunately, people don't always do that, do they? No. But I'm sure people listening to this are much more educated.
Yeah.
If you made it this far, you're doing it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Is there like sort of a range of set volume you tend to see in your programming for powerlifting specific? Other
than circumstances like my own right now,
yeah,
because like this obviously it's a fair bit lower than what I would usually, but it's different because I program in the phases are different. Hypertrophy is going to be a bit higher, peaking is going to be a lot lower.
Yeah.
But I would say on a completely broad generalization that 60, 70, maybe 80 sets a week tends to be where I land for hypertrophy for my guys. And peaking tends to be 10, 20 sets a week, lower than that.
Yep.
But obviously it's
still significantly lower than what we would see in a volume-driven hypertrophy phase in a bodybuilder.
Yeah, well, you're going to be... Well, your guys are just a lot more tolerant.
Absolutely,
They've been there, they've done that. They need a lot more to get the result because they're so adapted to that.
Yeah. But I think that's also the downfall in that transition phase, is they're coming from 100 sets a week, and then you give them 60, and they're trying to also pick themselves up.
So
I know, but
this is it's going to
there's a transition. Down. But I mean, the mindset behind the bodybuilder is like, if they saw...
if I do less, I'm going to be weaker.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, to unpick that for listeners just quickly, if someone's a couch potato and has never trained before, the amount of work they need to do to improve would be like, what, one set? Two sets? A very small, maybe not one set.
Very gradual increases.
Yeah. Whereas if somebody has a really high training age and they've been training with intensity and frequency for years, they can't get away with doing, 10 working sets over the course of the week and expect improvements. Because one of you guys mentioned adaptation. So the longer you've been training, the more working sets you've been doing, the more you need to do to continue improving. Yeah.
But it's not even actually that crazy. Like in the research, when they get untrained populations and test them for hypertrophy, they give them like 6 sets a week for a muscle group, and they get hypertrophy.
Yeah,
because there's it's literally that's the only stimulus they need. And once you overcook that stimulus, then you go to the next one and the next one and the next one.
I feel like these last few years where volume studies have been a big thing have been great in the way that they've brought a light to it, but then also you get people that see that and then they're like, oh, I need to do this, like volume's the king, and now that's
the only thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely there are people that are going to take extremes always. So.
Yeah, I still think the take home message is that it's still mechanical tension progression for hypertrophy at least.
Yeah,
not necessarily specifically more sets equals more growth.
Yeah. So we need to look at that as part of the larger puzzle.
Big picture.
Yeah, big picture. Now, moving on to our segments, Will. We're going to ask you if you have something worth sharing.
He's nervous about these because he's listened to some previous podcasts.
Now, Will is not just a podcast guest. Will is a personal friend of ours who we've spent many years hanging out with. And I'm nervous about asking him these questions because I'm the queen of would you rather just in group settings when I'm having dinner with friends. I'm like, would you rather? And Will can never answer them because he's just like, fuck, I don't want to do either of those, so he just won't pick one. So I'm really nervous about asking you these questions.
But before we started...
We'll hash it out.
But before we started recording this podcast too, you mentioned that you heard Dalton's Would You Rather, which was would you rather lick an armpit or sniff an arse crack? And you said you're sniffing all day, every day. I'm not sure if you meant arse crack or...
In that circumstance, I don't know if I feel like that's
You'd
the better option.
Arse crack.
I mean...
Explain.
I just feel like we're always going into dirty ass public toilets and stuff. You're pretty much sniffing ass crack there.
What's another ass crack, Dad?
I mentioned that I've been to New York recently, and the entire city is an ass crack. So it all smells like it anyway. So I was pretty much doing that for a week.
So you're getting nose deep in an ass crack over licking an armpit.
Yeah, I feel like
That's cool. You know, each to their own.
Sniffing is just like, no, it's a bad smell.
Well, I mean,
it is true. Like a tongue on pit is pretty personal.
Yeah, how sweaty is the pit?
It's not something that I do often.
Yeah, I might have to agree with you. I don't know. That's a tough one. Yeah. But you just wait till your would you rather. It's coming up soon.
But in the meantime, there's something worth sharing segment. Have you seen, done, or been involved with anything recently?
Sniffed or snorted
that you think is worth sharing? Why is it a snort and not a sniff when it comes to cocaine?
I don't know.
I suppose the sniff
you're not really sniffing it. You're not smelling it. You're inhaling it.
You're literally snorting. Okay, anyway, side shoot. Anything worth sharing?
What, an educational thing?
Can be whatever. Something you think is worth valuing.
Could be a great porno you've watched even.
No.
Just anything. Literally anything.
This is the broad shit ever. No, I don't.
Best moment in America?
Stuff that
yeah, you can share a funny story from America or a good
or
time.
Just,
well, we've shared it a few times. Me and Jamie did a review in America, so people watch that, which they probably haven't.
We'll seek it out now.
Yeah.
But the funniest moment in America was when we first got to New York, like literally the first day. Like we haven't even arrived yet. Mm-hmm. We came by train via Rhode Island, and then we got off the train, went on the subway, which connects all of New York.
Sound like a refugee.
And literally the first subway to our Airbnb. So still got our bags, still got everything, and yeah, if you've been in New York, every subway you get on's got a bum or somebody asking for money, which you just get over. You don't really nobody gives them much. But this guy decided that everybody's got a different method, you know, whether it's I'm sad, give me money or whatever. But this guy singing a song, and so he gets him on very loudly, announces, "Hey, I'm singing a song." Has a cup, and he's doing a thigh slap for his drum, and he's singing a very loud song, and it was pretty impressive.
It was good?
No, it was, well, I mean, for a bum, I was like, good on you, man. Like, at least you're not just asking for money. But he was a bit scary as well, had a bit of a vibe of like, I'll kill you.
Okay.
So I was like, me and Jamie, well, me especially being first time ever in New York, just head down, like, cool, no thanks. But everybody did that. I think he got $5 or something in $1 notes. They do $1 notes. So, which is all right for 1 minute.
Yeah, making more money than me.
Yeah, he just goes he'll just go train to train.
It's $300 an hour.
Not bad. He's probably rich. But anyway, he's finished. He walks through the subway and he got only a couple bucks, which he thought wasn't adequate for his performance.
Okay.
And he yelled out I always get I forget what it was now exactly, but I always get the poor carriages or whatever he said. And there were a bunch of people that thought that, no, hang on, you're the bum. You probably shouldn't be saying that. So one lady in particular who was right next to us decided to pipe up and just go like, no, you're the one singing on the subway. You're the bum.
So he was calling everyone on the train like povos or something.
Yeah,
because
they didn't give him money.
Yeah, he's going, I always get the...
Povo.
Yeah, I always get I forget damn it, I wish I remember exactly what we said. We said it on our thing.
Like,
I always get the bum ass trains or something like that. Yeah. And then she's like, no, you're the poverty guy. You're the guy asking for money. You're the bum on the train. Like, fuck you, pretty much.
Okay.
And then he's come back and he's like, well, at least I'm working for money or whatever. And she's like, I do a job and stuff like that. And anyway, it was just back and forth. She should have shut her mouth. But she decided to just keep poking that fire.
Okay.
And he's poking it back, and then he decides.
She got stabbed and bled to death. Is that how the story ends?
No, close.
Oh, okay.
But,
oh god.
Yeah, she decided to keep poking it, and then he ran out of arguments because his argument wasn't great.
Yeah.
So he decided that he was just going to declare that she was only pissed off about the situation because she gets no dick.
Oh.
She goes, you just don't get no dick, and she's like, I get plenty of dick.
Yes.
And then all the guys stood up and handed them their business down.
I just love that she really emphasised the plenty. But yeah, I get plenty of dick.
Yes.
And then I was just, at this point, we're trying to not laugh because we're between them. So it was kind of like, shit. Yeah, but it was pretty funny at that point.
Welcome to America.
Yeah, welcome to New York. And then, so they go back and forth a little bit more on that.
Yeah.
And then she just decides, you know what, fuck it. And she's just like, I should stab you.
Right.
I was like, okay,
that escalated.
Turn for a bit of the worst. Not as funny anymore.
No.
And then he goes, not if I stab you first. And he reaches in. I assume it was just his bum crack.
Yeah.
There was nothing else back there. He didn't have pockets. So he just reaches down the back of his pants and pulls out this knife, which wasn't that impressive. It was like just a home knife, but it's still, it's a knife.
I'd be scared of a butter knife if someone came at me with it.
Yeah, and he was holding it pretty
stabbishly.
Stab you. And getting it out, he nearly hit Jamie, which was close to him.
Oh my god!
Thank God Jamie would have got stabbed, not me. But
whatever,
you,
Jamie. Who cares about Jamie, anyways?
But yeah, he pulled it out, and then all of a sudden, we were freaking out the most. Everybody else on the subway must have seen it regularly or something. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, so that was the.
Did anyone get stabbed? Don't just stop.
No, he just started to pull out and show everybody, and then he fainted, and then she's like, "Oh, you have no money," and then he fainted that he had heaps of money in his pocket, but I have suspicions that he didn't.
Probably bottle capitalists.
And then he decided to. Then he got off the subway and went to the next one for his next gig.
Right.
So
hopefully.
But it was a hilarious thing, but also quite scary.
Holy shit!
It was a really good intro.
That is a great introduction to America.
For anyone listening, I can only speak for myself. I believe that a lot of people are in poverty because of institutional reasons. So we're not looking down on them, right?
Yeah.
Well, America's very different to Australia as well.
Yes. Well, I'd like to highlight that I'm not a classist, is all I'm saying. But that's very funny.
Most of them were great. Most of the bums would be like, hey, most of them would try and sell something or just ask politely.
Yeah.
But this guy,
he's working hard for it.
Well, he was working
I
until
want to know
enough.
where he got the knife from if it was really his ass crack.
Yeah, I want to know as well.
You don't want to sit down and forget about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was definitely down the pants. It wasn't like a pocket.
Yeah.
I don't know where it came
Maybe
from.
an internal
Just
pocket
a sneaky.
of sorts.
Yeah. Cool. That's a good story.
Thanks for sharing, Will.
Yeah, other than that, the courses that we did were great. I'll point that out.
What was your favourite
But
one?
weren't the highlight.
Not the funniest thing. We did Pat Davidson's Rethinking the Big Patterns 2, and we did Zach Couples' Human Matrix, and both 2-day courses throughout the trip, which again we did 2 review videos on each of them separately on our YouTube channel. But
so who was it?
Pat Davidson and Zach Couples.
Okay.
Very different, but very very unique seminars, but really interesting.
Most important question of the whole podcast: shoot, shag, marry, Zach, Pat.
Oh, is that the presenters?
Yeah.
Yep.
Or Dean.
Oh no, let's go with Jamie. It's all the
Okay,
American
alright,
trip.
and Jamie, the guy that you travel
Shoot,
with.
shag, marry.
Who do you shoot, who do you shag, who do you marry?
Jamie would be a good shoot.
No, don't give him ideas.
Jamie, I think is the only person that I could have done that trip with.
So you're gonna marry him.
Lasted 6 weeks and still be fun right at the end.
Okay.
There's not many people. There are a few, but there are not many people I could do that with and still enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I think marry Jamie.
Okay, that's sweet.
I hope he would accept my marriage.
Is this an official proposal? Is that where this is going?
It sounded like.
Do you want to borrow my ring? Okay.
Jamie's not pretty enough for you.
And I think, that's a really hard one. But me and Pat are both very wide, not very athletic people. we connect on a deeper level of shape.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to shag Pat, and then unfortunately, as much as I love Zach, and he's a boss.
Oh.
But
you shouldn't he?
You're going to have to.
Maybe just in.
But I think he would survive because he's a gangster.
Yeah, right.
All right.
He's the least gangster you've ever seen.
Well, that's the sweetest thing you could say when you shoot someone.
Yeah.
You're a gangster, mate.
Yeah, it's a.
I feel like I would accept being shot if someone said that about me, so that's very
nice. As long as
nice.
they turn the gun sideways.
Now that wasn't really a segment of mine that we had planned, but I feel like we should introduce it to every guest.
Perhaps.
Use people like Oprah.
You're going to end up with a whole
Michael Jackson.
Just a podcast of questions. No.
I would love to. If it was just me organising this podcast and not me and Dean, I actually had a list of segments that I wanted to do, and Dean was like, just choose 3.
Maybe it's a once a year special.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, just questions only. Yeah.
I also wanted a soundboard where there was like people clapping, people booing.
But Dean, you can edit that in.
He banned the
No, because
soundboard.
she wanted an actual soundboard here, so like while I was was talking, she'd be like, boo. And I'm like, the whole podcast would you just be drowning me out with shitty noises?
I know, that's the point. Wouldn't that be great?
No.
Maybe you need 2 podcasts, one funny and one educational.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like people usually like the after talk or the coaches talk. We just have like Liz's podcast and then the podcast with like.
And Liz, just on a side note, you could just like, after we're done here, you edit that in.
Yeah, I should. But I would like to see Dean's reaction as I boo him, is like the point.
I reckon it'd be like me in prep. Eventually I'd laugh and then eventually I'd just be like, this is shit, why are we doing
this? Fuck off. Now I'm going to skip the embarrassing gym moment just because I'm dying to get to your would you rather. But listeners, if you do have an embarrassing gym moment, go to the podcast page, submit it, and we're going to read it out. And
I feel like everybody's is just farting.
It is common one.
Yeah, it is very common.
Yeah, I think farting and shitting themselves is pretty common. Or maybe vomiting.
Like, if we don't get any stories
if anyone
outside...
shit themselves and vomited at the same time, please put that.
But it's got to be a gym moment. It can't just be like on a bus.
I was out drinking.
Doesn't
I was
count.
on the subway.
But if we don't get any stories outside of farting, we might have to drop that segment. So please save the segment. Submit your stories.
We'll go to the 3 final questions for Will.
Oh, the 3 final questions.
Yeah, so
Alright,
the first
the
one...
third being the would you rather.
Yeah, the third's the would you rather.
If
Or
you
just want to go
could
straight into
solve-
the would you rather?
Let's go with it. If you could solve just one mystery, anything at all, what would it be?
Oh, man. It's a tough one. Do I go on a world level and act like a hero, or do I go really selfish?
Whichever.
I think as much as we're here talking about biomechanics and all these causes, I know that there are a bazillion things that we don't know, as much as we think we like to.
Mm-hmm. We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, well, even things like whatever. There's lots of things in the body that we actually don't know that people probably would be amazed at. I would solve all them so I can be stronger.
Well, you need to pick a specific one.
No,
yes, you do.
Yeah, you would solve a way to manipulate socket depth, limb length, and all of the contributing factors to limiting strength that you can't change.
Well, there's like we did that seminar on recovery, but we're only going off. I know that like all those weren't 100% definites.
Yeah.
I want to
they
know
were likely.
the best way and so I can get as strong as possible. Yeah, I'm a selfish fellow.
I accept that answer.
All right. Question number 2.
You want to ask?
This is fitting considering again you just went to America with Jamie. But if you were arrested and nobody knew what you were arrested for out of your friends and family, what do you think they would think you did?
These days, God, I don't do anything these days. I'm super boring now. Probably just abusing somebody these days. Days of me partying and running amok are gone.
Okay.
I'm super boring, so it'd probably be getting super angry and pissed off.
Which is interesting because the whole time I've known you, you've always been like the calm and collected guy.
Physical or verbal abuse?
Nah, verbal, right?
Verbal.
I couldn't see you physically assaulting someone.
I think I'd want to. I would picture it in my mind, but to do
been there.
To do it is I don't. Although I do get, whenever I go out, people try to find me all the time. It's super weird.
Maybe people think that because of your size, you'd be a good fighter.
Insecurity.
But it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, I
You'd
can't
be slow.
rotate at all, so there's zero power here.
All right. Now, would you rather? A wrist flick. Would you rather suck one dick 100 times or 100 dicks once?
The second one.
Really?
100 dicks, 100 different dicks.
Less traumatic.
Is it though?
It was over and gone. Oh no.
But you have to do it 100 times to like 100. We have
It's
to
still
do
100 times.
It's you still have to.
That was very quick.
Have you thought about?
I think
this
he shot
before?
from the hip.
No.
Yeah, a little bit, but
So you don't want to get personal with the one dick. You'd rather just like get through the task of 100
Tell you why
I'm thinking like time frames. The first one, like that could be drawn out over a year, and that's time I'm fucked for life.
Oh,
I'm completely traumatized by that point. I need extreme therapy.
Let's call it
I would need therapy.
one BJ a day for 100 days. So the length of time, the time
100
under
day versus
tension.
versus one
No,
very traumatic day.
No.
No,
So
it's one day for one new dick for 100 days, or the same dick 100 times.
But like over 100 days, so you can either have the same
That
guy
makes
show
it too
up.
easy just to choose the one person.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think so.
So the reason I would choose the one person is you would get to know what they like and you can get it over and done with really quickly. That's why I'm going with one dick 100 times. Yeah. Look, don't. That's not funny on a podcast so people can't see what you're doing. Anyways, Will, sorry. What was your answer?
In that context, yeah, the one.
The one.
Yeah. I thought you meant, I was picturing 100, like, an hour with
Yeah, it's true. Like, once you change the parameters associated with the 100 dicks, it does change the answer.
So
something to ponder about.
Yeah, okay. Alright, listeners.
So
Will wants to suck 100 different dicks, is what you're saying.
Logical.
There's too many ways to go around it, and you always want to know, like, what if. But, yeah, more serious note. Will, where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
And ask you to suck what?
At WCROZ or Z.
Okay.
W Croz.
Is W Croz
W Croz on or just search William Crozier on Instagram. Facebook, wouldn't bother.
Unless you want to see good dog photos, you got great dogs.
Yeah, but they're on Instagram too.
Instagram.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I know Instagram's where I post most material for both athlete and coach.
Yeah. When you were in America, I slept over at your place, hanging out with your missus, and you obviously have 2 beds at your house because you have a spare bedroom. But I insisted on sleeping in the bed with your missus because I wanted to sleep with the dogs.
Yeah.
And I got to spoon Tank all night. It was so marvelous.
So W Cross on Instagram.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Yes.
Proceed.
Or our website, nexusperformance.com.au.
Cool.
Or YouTube, I guess. Be the only one that we're regularly doing lately.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of really cool content on the Nexus YouTube. I send people.
Yeah, after coming back from America, it has a little bit of a spark under me to put more, because especially going to gyms like Hybrid Performance with Steffi Cohen and seeing like a heap of those guys that have just constantly got a camera in their face and just going hard on it and seeing how successful they are and how much they prioritize it.
Yeah.
You know, like when you assume, if I say like a successful business to somebody, they don't picture somebody just walking around with a camera in their face. But that's what their times prioritize. So I feel like we should do more, and especially after coming back from America as well, we have a lot more ideas. So trying to chuck them down before I.
Pro tip.
That's cool.
Love it.
Nice.
Well, thanks for your time, Will.
Very much.
Appreciate it. I look forward to the next Would You Rather on the next podcast. I'm going to make it a juicy one, no pun intended.
Yeah. And a nice little one for us, stay up to date with Flex. All of the necessary stuff is in the show notes.
Yep, indeed.
Super simple.
Book, research review, coaching, consults, you name it. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Did the double wave again.